Jennifer Heck didn't let a cancer diagnosis change her dreams. Diagnosed while getting her law degree, Jennifer pushed pause, not stop. Good morning, I'm Alexis Del Cid. Welcome to the Morning Medical Update. When wife, mother, and aspiring attorney Jennifer Heck went back to school to get her law degree, she had no idea the true test would be what would come quickly after. And what seemed like a game-changing diagnosis was only a temporary setback.
That's kind of one of my mottos as I go, that, I can find joy in the journey.
In 2023, 56-year-old Jennifer Heck headed back to class. She'd raised her 4 kids, including NFL offensive lineman Charlie Heck. Now it was Jennifer's turn to complete one of her own dreams. But while attending Duke Law School, she started feeling pain in her arm.
And I'm like, that's what happens when you go back to school in your 50s and you're carrying, law books this thick in your backpack. I must have, irritated my shoulder, but it got worse and worse and worse and worse.
She saw Dr. Paul Schreppel, orthopedic surgeon at the University of Kansas Health System and head orthopedic surgeon for the Kansas City Chiefs. He took some x-rays of Jennifer's arm.
He said, there's nothing wrong with your rotator cuff. Everything looks really healthy. And I was like, okay, well, it really hurts. And he's like, right. This part here, this bone, should be white. And there were areas throughout that were just gray. You could kind of almost look like you could see through it.
Dr. Schreppel ordered an MRI and referred her to orthopedic oncologist Dr. Kyle Sweeney.
Cancer never crossed my mind.
The team needed to stabilize Jennifer's arm immediately with a titanium rod in hopes to grow new bone. Soon, a bone marrow biopsy would confirm Jennifer had multiple myeloma, a rare and uncurable blood cancer.
If somebody had said, you're going to get a cancer diagnosis, how do you think you'd respond? It was different getting that information than what I would have expected. And I think getting the information the way I did and from the doctors was very helpful for me to kind of keep this thing from like, this is a disaster and who knows how big and bad it could be too. This is what it is. This is how we treat it. There are protocols that are successful.
Jennifer, who handled her diagnosis like a champ, got emotional though when she and her husband Andy, a former NFL player himself and now a coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, gathered their 4 children to share the news.
That was probably the first time that I had allowed myself to have a breakdown. Telling them was so hard because they were so sad and scared.
Next, medical oncologist Dr. Al-Ola Abdallah started Jennifer on 4 rounds of chemotherapy. He told Jennifer her diagnosis would require a bone marrow transplant. No need for a donor, though. The team would be able to use Jennifer's own cells and reinfuse them back into her body.
You sit in a chair and they have this machine and they're taking your stem cells out and putting the blood back in.
Jennifer is now on maintenance therapy indefinitely, a daily chemo pill and a shot she receives monthly at the Cancer Center.
I honestly felt like I'm part of a team at KU. I'm going to be a good team member here and do my part of it.
She trusted her team at KU, and during it all, even made it out to Las Vegas to watch the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl.
Seeing the grit and the resiliency of the athletes, the coaches, that's inspirational to me.
She relied a lot on her family and the Heck winning spirit to pull her through.
Oh, that's your grandson.
Yeah.
We were just talking, that was Jennifer's grandson in that final shot, the little boy with the headphones.
Yes.
We are so glad to welcome Jennifer to our program. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we are also very glad to have her hematologist, oncologist, and director of the Plasma Cell Disorder Program, Dr. Al-Ola Abdallah. Thank you for being here.
Thank you also.
And we also have joining us virtually Dr. Paul Schreppel, an orthopedic surgeon and the head orthopedic surgeon for the Kansas City Chiefs. Quite a cool title. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Schreppel. Jennifer, how are you feeling today?
I feel great. I'm energetic. I'm doing what I love in life. I feel great. I feel absolutely great.
You can tell you're such a mom, which you were so stoic and brave, and the one time you break down is telling your kids, because we want to protect our kids from everything.
We do. And you never want to have that kind of conversation with your children. But it was just the first of many conversations. And my journey has been a great one. And the kids are part of my team and support system, and they're young adults. So, they were able to rally and be part of this journey with me.
We'll dive into your medical journey. I do want to ask you, what is studying the bar exam like with 4 kids, a husband who's a coach in the NFL, in the middle of the football season? Where do you go to study?
So I'm actually also working at the district attorney's office with the juvenile justice team.
Wow.
So I'll be taking the bar exam in February, and we'll have a little bit more time in the next couple months when I'm finished with my experience at the district attorney's office to do that full time.
Such a go-getter. I love it. I want to start at the beginning of your medical journey. You had a big hurdle thrown in your way. So you're in the middle of law school in Durham, North Carolina at Duke. You start feeling some pain that you think is from your backpack, carrying books around. We've all felt that as students. Although we didn't all go back to school at 56 or 57 to go to law school. Get to that in a bit. So you decide to see Dr. Schruppel. Why Dr. Schruppel?
So I call him Dr. Paul.
You were personal friends with we'll call him Dr. Schruppel, but you're personal friends with Dr. Paul, right?
Yes. So Dr. Paul is, as you said, the orthopedic surgeon for the Kansas City Chiefs. My husband is one of the coaches. And so I had an appointment with Dr. Paul literally for the Monday I got back from law school to look at my arm, and I'm thinking I had torn my rotator cuff in my mind. So, Dr. Paul took an x-ray first, and then we had a very surprising, we had a surprising conversation, although Dr. Paul did not, at that point, know exactly what we were looking at. So we were not having a cancer diagnosis or a cancer conversation. But it was the beginning, it was the first sense that I had that this is not what I thought it was.
Dr. Schruppel, what did you see? You're not an oncologist. You see plenty of rotator cuffs. What did you see that set off immediate alarm bells?
Yeah, good question. So obviously I work pretty closely with her husband, Andy, and Andy had just mentioned, hey, she's having some increasing pain. This is really starting to affect her day to day. Do you mind taking a look? And sure, we see that kind of thing all the time, every day in a sports medicine clinic. Her presentation was a little bit different just because it wasn't necessarily traumatic. So an atraumatic origin, no falls or anything. It was a little bit more into her arm and really wasn't activity related. So those are all things that at least should raise some concern. But once we got our x-ray, you could see a few things on her x-ray that were concerning for something that was potentially malignant or metastatic. So there was this periosteal reaction, this inflammation of the lining around the bone. There were some areas that almost looked moth-eaten. So small areas of the bone where they would normally be pretty dense, called the cortex, where there were areas that were just completely broken down. So
did you say
warning signs that
they looked like a moth had eaten at them?
Correct. Yeah, just areas of the bone where it's kind of been broken down. Yeah, it actually is a description we use sometimes in our textbooks. So enough of a change on there that I thought it was important to get her over to one of my colleagues, Dr. Kyle Sweeney, who is one of our orthopedic oncologists.
So what you saw was enough to think this might be cancer. I've got to get her to an oncologist.
Correct.
At what point, I'm just curious, because you know Jennifer personally, you know her husband, you work closely with him as well. When you're thinking that word in your head, are you having to restrain yourself from saying it? How do you do that dance when you're talking to the patient but sending her to this specialist?
Well, good question. I think as Jay kind of alluded to, I think we need to have more answers first before you have a robust discussion as to what that treatment plan is. And I, as a sports medicine provider, certainly am not the one best qualified to have that discussion. And so I think you initiate the conversation, as she had mentioned, in the process of gaining more answers. And, all of that information that you gather really helps construct the treatment plan. And I have the utmost confidence in our NCI designated cancer center that I knew she was in great hands.
Dr. Abdallah, Jennifer was diagnosed with multiple myeloma.
Yeah.
How do you explain that to a patient?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, we try to be very, brief about that and clear. That multiple myeloma is a blood cancer. It's not. It affects the bones, but it's really a blood cancer. What it comes from, it's your own plasma cells, which is part of the white blood cells. I call it like it's really those cells that produces antibodies to protect you from infection. Unfortunately, for some reason, these plasma cells become, cancerous, and they start producing more of these antibodies that are becoming more ineffective, and it causes damages. The damages can, as we saw in her case, can go to the bones and affect the bones, causes fractures, or it can go to the bone marrow and causes bone marrow failure, anemia, and all these stuff. And then unfortunately it can go to the kidneys and causes kidney damage. So this is what we call the blood cancer that can cause multiple organ damage if it's not treated.
How long do you think it had been brewing in Jennifer before the symptoms to her?
I think that's a very great question. We have that big debate that we don't think myeloma starts immediately. We think it has been there for, not as a myeloma, as a precancerous, it's called MGUS. These plasma cells are there, it's harmless, it doesn't cause any problems, but over years it might be triggered by something that we're trying to learn and understand. So what exactly the time frame, we really don't know. Some people estimate maybe 10 years, 15 years that have been there. Nothing to be done. We watch these patients, they live with it, but there's a small portion of the patients, unfortunately, will convert from this precancerous to a cancer, and unfortunately she had that conversion.
Are Jennifer's symptoms typical? Are those the typical symptoms of joint pain or bone pain?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. I mean, myeloma, as much as we say it's a bone disease, not all the time we see it in the bones, some other features. But her symptoms, I think it's more, I think the bone pain is different from the joint pain. That these patients always complain of the severity of the pain, that is always persistent and it gets worse and worse. So the type of myeloma, unfortunately, is like a type that, you need real pain medications, and it doesn't actually improve without any, significant intervention.
Jennifer, who was it that first said the word cancer when they were talking to you about your diagnosis?
Yeah, it was actually Dr. Sweeney, the orthopedic oncologist. Dr. Paul had given me just enough of a little heads up. He said, these could be benign lesions. And I was like, well, wait a minute. If they're not benign, that means it could potentially be cancerous. So, and again, there were blood tests and all kinds of things that had to happen. But hearing the news from Dr. Sweeney, and I was sitting with my husband, was the absolute perfect way to hear it. Because he walked in, he's energetic, he's a positive person. And he walked in and he said, so we think that you have multiple myeloma. We're going to verify with even some more additional tests. I had had quite a few blood tests at that point. And he said, it's not curable, but it's treatable.
Okay.
And he said, so we're going to talk about that. But meanwhile, we need to stabilize your arm because, they wanted to maintain as much of my bone as they could.
Right.
So we addressed that quite quickly.
How do they stabilize your arm? What do they do?
So I was in a sling until I had the surgery, and then they had put a titanium rod in from this joint down to here that stays in forever. And I mean, the nice thing is bone grew back.
Right.
I don't even think about my arm anymore. It's almost a miracle to me.
Right.
How great a job was done, and just my treatment in general. I mean, I am just so, and it's a combination. I mean, stabilizing the arm without addressing the myeloma would just be sort of a temporary fix.
Sure.
But being positively responsive to the treatment has been like a huge part of, obviously my full recovery, including my arm.
Dr. Abdallah, what's the first step that you take in the treatment path for Jennifer?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as Jennifer was talking about that, fixing the fracture is one very important part, but as we also have to see, we have to treat the cause of that, because if you fix the fracture here and the myeloma is going to continue, that other fractures is going to continue to happen in her back, in her other arm, even pelvic area and femur. So it makes a lot of sense is to treat the myeloma so you can kill the cause of this fracture. And I think the treatment here is that I know a lot of people talk about chemotherapy. The treatment, we call it like it's actually 3 phases. The phase 1 is the 4 cycles of induction therapy, we call it. What we do is that we try to kill as much as possible of cancer cells, as much as possible, and then we move on to the next phase. In her case, she was eligible to what we call stem cell transplant, where we try to eliminate as much as possible cancer cells to go to 0% of plasma cells in her bone marrow. And the third step, which she's right now in it, is maintenance therapy, is keep the disease in remission as long as possible. So she got through the first and the second, phases, and now she's in the third phase, which is, like as we talk about, just to keep the disease under control. So this all treatment, I think, it's just like, keep patients as much as possible in remission as long as possible.
So you're clearing the field
Exactly.
with the chemo, and then bringing in the bone marrow transplant?
Correct. That's another part that we do, we still use a drug called melphalan. That's part of the stem cell transplant. So what is it? It actually, after we kill it, this stem cell transplant, or the melphalan, I kind of like describe it as a nuclear bomb. I know a lot of patients maybe don't like it, but I've tried to be very honest that we go ahead, give this drug, it goes to the bone marrow and eliminates everything, the good cells and the bad cells. Now, the problem here is that if you don't give anything like stem cells, patients will be needing transfusions, they will high risk for infection for months. So what we do is that before we drop this nuclear bomb, we take from the patient their stem cells through a process, and prior to the chemotherapy, we give the chemotherapy, and then after that, the second day, we give their own stem cells, which it goes back to the bone marrow and rebuild, her white cells, blood, and platelets. So instead of waiting months for recovery, it takes only 10 days. So her own stem cells make the recovery quicker.
So when you're saying, for our non-medical audience, is bone marrow transplant a synonym or the same as a stem cell transplant?
Yeah,
they're the
stem
same
cell
things.
transplant. Yeah, correct.
Bone marrow transplant,
Yeah,
stem cell
but
transplant.
we call her, because it's coming from her own body, we call it autologous transplant. If it's coming from a donor, we call it allogenic transplant. So it's a different. We use her own stem cells because we just want her counts to recover faster.
And is that was my next question, is why does using her stem cells work better in this case than a donor's cells?
Yeah, excellent question. All our studies in the past, we had unsuccessful results of long-term of donor cells because there's a high risk for infection and complications. The autologous transplant have a very good benefit because these risk of graft versus host disease is not present there. And the goal here is that the chemotherapy itself, it's the main thing, the melphalan, or what we call the nuclear bomb, is the one that actually kind of eliminates the myeloma cells. And all what we need is her immune system to recover through her own stem cells. So it's a fast recovery with minimum side effects.
Dr. Schruppel, how common is it that someone comes to you for what they think is a bone problem, an orthopedic problem, or their rotator cuff, and that it turns out you see enough red flags to send them to an oncologist? How common is that?
I wouldn't say it's a common thing that we encounter, but obviously part of our screening process is to get basic x-rays, sometimes MRIs and CTs, and I think all orthopedic surgeons need to have some level of training when you're looking at these imaging, different imaging modalities, to have at least a basic understanding of what's concerning, what really needs to get to someone in this specific example, in a cancer care setting.
Well, she went to the right guy. Dr. Schruppel, thank goodness that she knew you and went to you, because you knew immediately what you were looking at, or you had a really good idea of what you were looking at. We are getting some community questions and some comments. Be sure to send yours in. If you want us to read anything out loud on the program, just use the chat on YouTube or Facebook, or you can email us at the Medical News Network. All that information is right there on your screen. Jennifer, your family, as the questions come in, I want to ask you about your family. It's so interesting. So you're married to former NFL player who's now a coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. The other Andy Is that what you call him, the other Andy, when you're at home? And in addition, one of your kids grew up to play in the NFL. Does he still play in the NFL?
He does. Charlie is with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yes.
And you have 3 other very successful children.
I do. My triplets, yes.
Okay, so you're the mom of 1 kiddo and then triplets. What came first, the triplets or the single kiddo?
No, Jonathan was born first,
Okay.
and when he was 2.5, the triplets were born.
And is one of those triplets the NFL player?
Yes.
Okay, so the
Yes.
one in the middle.
Yes.
Obviously, the one in the middle of the 3. So 2 girls and a boy.
Correct.
Right. Okay. As the spouse of an NFL player, spouse of an NFL coach, coaches are on the road for a good chunk of the year. How did you juggle? Well, first of all, how did you juggle 4 kids with a coach as they were growing up?
Yeah, so fortunately, Andy had a fairly long playing career, and the players have a friendlier schedule. They're home by dinner, unless they're traveling for an away game. They have an off season as well. So he was very present when the triplets were small. Now, they were born in the middle of the football season, and he was with the Bears at that time. And the ownership there was so wonderful. They had a plan to get him back in case I happened to go into labor when he was at an away game.
Okay, good. I would hope so.
Which did not happen,
Yes.
luckily.
Thank goodness.
Charlie and John were able to go and, work for the team during the summers, and they're all huge, diehard football fans.
How did you juggle cancer treatment as a family in the middle of an NFL season or in the middle of an NFL career for your
Yeah.
husband? And you're going to law school. It's a lot. It's a lot to keep track of, even in saying what Jennifer has done and was doing. How did you juggle all that emotionally?
Yeah. So I had to take a semester off. And I wasn't sure. I was hoping I would get back to law school, but it depended on how things went. But I did have the stem cell transplant during the football season. And that is by far the most challenging part of the treatment. But we had arranged for a very close sister of mine, my 2 daughters, a daughter-in-law. People were taking rotations to be with me and be supportive. And I think the team was also ready at any point if Andy, had to bow out, they were ready
knew.
for that. But I responded so well to the care after the stem cell treatment. And it was actually a very special time with the people who came to help me and be with me and, live at our house for a few weeks at a time. And
Your loved ones and your friends that came
yes,
to stay with you?
they did, yeah.
How long did you have people staying with you? That's so important. Doctors always say the emotional component has a lot to do with how quickly someone heals.
Yes. Well, for 30 days after you have a stem cell treatment, you're not even allowed to go outside. You can go outside with a mask on to get in the car and you check in. I was at the hospital every day for 30 days to get checked on. And if I needed, if my potassium was low, I'd get an IV. So you have to have somebody with you, and you have to be within 20 minutes of the hospital so that you can get in the car and rush to the hospital if you develop a temperature. It's a very intense 30 days. And so having people that, were taking great care of me at home when Andy wasn't there was huge.
I can imagine. Why can't you go outside?
So I think the purpose here is that we have to understand about that chemotherapy. Your immune system is trying to recover, and the first 30 days is very challenging because of the infection rate is very high. We have a great success when a lot of our patients are compliant with this strategy, that they have a less risk for having infection. less risk for developing mortality. So your immune system is not yet recovered. So any kind of infection, a small or a big infection, can be a little bit catastrophic, and we don't want any patients to have any harm from our treatment, because the goal again is to keep the patient alive and away from hospitalization.
Any sort of cold or infection or flu. So you can't leave your house for 30 days except doctor's appointments.
Correct, and I think the whole purpose is to prevent these infections, and we don't want any complications for that. So I know patients get really frustrated and annoyed about that, but this really actually helps a lot, to keep their immune system, to keep them protected from any kind of infection.
Did the people caring for you also have to stay inside for 30 days and 30 nights? Was it?
No, but they all wore masks. Sanitizer on their hands. We social distanced, and I followed it to the letter of the law. And I would say too, if anybody is facing something like that, in the big picture, 30 days is nothing. And if you can get through, I never ended up having to be hospitalized. It's worth being vigilant about it and making the decision to just, whatever the doctors tell me to do, I'm just going to do it. I know they have my best interest at heart.
Model patient right there. You won't get any pushback from Jennifer.
No.
Dr. Schruppel, you're close with the family. Was it hard, or how do you not get emotional when you're also close with her husband and you're working together and you're both with the Chiefs? How do you keep emotions out of it?
Yeah, I think it's tough to ever take emotions completely out of this. It's such a big diagnosis and so impactful to the patient's family's lives. Thankfully, we've got an exceptional team within the KU Cancer Center, so I was very confident that she was in good hands. And I knew that we were passing her off very quickly to the right team to take care of her and provide her what she needed at the right time. I tried to be as supportive as possible, and I'd run into Andy just around the building, see how she's doing, see if there's any way I could help. But I think there's no way to take emotion completely out of us.
I want to show some pictures that Jennifer shared with us, because throughout everything, you were able to attend 2 of the Chiefs' Super Bowl appearances. This winning moment, man, that must have been so emotional on so many levels.
Yeah, it was really exciting.
Is that you and your husband?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. The success that the Chiefs have had has just been such a fun, special part of our lives. It's really awesome.
The golden age of Kansas City.
Yes.
Right? I want to go to some of the questions from our community, because we have some good questions and comments. Angie wants to know, when is it necessary for someone to find a donor versus the use of their own cells?
Well,
Dr. Abdallah.
yeah, that's a great question. I think for myeloma, it's now rare that we care about donors. We have really great drugs and, most amazing, this is the best era for myeloma, because we have a lot of immunotherapy treatments. And I think the stem cell transplant is so far the oldest, but we don't require any donors, for the myeloma anymore. It's really rarely, and very, very rare cases, in this case.
Question for Jennifer from Julie. Julie wants to know, have you ever gotten to meet Taylor Swift?
I have not met Taylor Swift.
Have you seen her across a crowded room?
I have seen her from a distance. I saw her on the field at the Super Bowl. And she has been nothing but a positive. She doesn't make any of it about herself. And Travis seems like he's his happiest, best self. I think they're a match made in heaven.
Oh, a lot of people are squealing right now at home. Wee. Jennifer wants to know, Tony wants to know, Jennifer, what kind of law are you focusing on? And you said child protection. What's the...
Yeah, so I am going into child welfare law. And I also have had an opportunity. I used to be a teacher. I knew I wanted, when I made this pivot, to do something that worked with families and children. And at Duke, I was able to work in a clinic on special education law. But my child in need of care work is probably where my heart is.
And so much need there. And you're so strong, so you're feeling great, just moving forward.
Yeah, I really do.
This is amazing. As we wrap up this discussion, I'd love to get some takeaways from our guests today. Dr. Schruppel, what do you want our viewers to know?
How strong Jen is. I mean, I think this is an incredible thing to go through, and the ability, the way that she went through it, as stoic and as poised as she did, and as compliant as she did, I think is exceptional. And I think, she had a great team involved. So I think it's an exciting time. Obviously I see it from a distance in sports medicine. I'm not intimately involved with cancer care, but I see so many exciting immunotherapies and treatment options that weren't present even 5 or 10 years ago. So, and I think the future is even brighter.
Jennifer, it's so impressive talking to you, even just meeting you before the program. The thing you wanted to focus on is moving forward and everything that's in your future. So what's your message to people watching who might be just really in the weeds right now, struggling with their own health problem?
Yeah. I do think that especially in the blood cancer world, there are incredible scientific changes and advances happening. And also just that, I think trusting your team, it also helps you focus on what is really important in your life. And one of the things that was very cool about one of my first appointments with Dr. Abdallah is he said, because Charlie was getting married, he said, you will be able to go to that wedding. It was in Croatia.
Charlie's your son?
Yes,
Charlie.
my son. And he knew I wanted to get back to law school, and he said, okay, that's what we're working towards. We're going to try to help you get to live the things that are important to you and enjoy life. And the treatment now allows you to have a life going forward because you feel well enough to do that, which is amazing.
A speed bump, but it did not change the course of
Correct.
what you wanted to do and your plans and your dreams.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Dr. Abdallah, what do you want our viewers to know?
Well, mainly, I think we all understand about how much myeloma treatment is advancing. And I think as I always agree with a lot of physicians, is to understand about how KU is an NCI Comprehensive Cancer Center, which have more advanced treatment, and we want to give this opportunity for a lot of patients in Kansas area to come to our center, and receive the best treatment care, mainly because we have subspecialized cancer doctors who are not only specialized in general oncology, but also in the field that they have the disease. So that will be very helpful for focusing on giving the better care for these patients and better quality of life.
Such a great team.
Yeah.
From the orthopedist to the oncologist to the hematologist, it took a whole team to get you back to your health.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to share your journey with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you to Dr. Abdallah and
Thank
Dr.
you.
Schreppel. Thanks for taking the time as well. And our guests, we appreciate you for joining the conversation today. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning. Debilitating migraines can also hold a wealth of information. I'm Alexis Del Cid. On the next All Things Brain Health, what those storms in your skull might be signaling about your brain health.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.